Since last week's attack in Kfar Duma that killed a Palestinian baby and wounded the other members of his family, the subject of Jewish terrorism has been on everybody's lips. Joining me now is Dr. Shlomo Fisher, an expert on Jewish extremism from the Jewish People Policy Institute. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, is this a phenomenon that's actually been bubbling under the surface for a long time and just exploded now?
Well, we have a history of Jewish extremism and of Jewish violence, extreme violence, going back at this point over 30 years. We have the first, what was so-called the first Jewish settlers underground in the early 1980s. We have the assassination of the prime minister, and we've had there's been ongoing sort of endemic violence between Palestinians and settlers on the West Bank, constantly for the past 20 years at least, or more. We have what's called, and of course you had Baruch Goldstein. We have at this point an ongoing history of incidents. Is this a continuous movement? Probably not. But yes, we do have, this is not something which is totally new, and it's not something which has merely been bubbling under the surface. We're having stuff that's happened over the past 30 years.
What do you think is at the root of it?
I think it's a fairly complex phenomenon. I mean, one of the things that's at the root of it is that we have an ongoing violent conflict between two national ethnic groups for 100 years. And we have an ongoing conflict over land and sovereignty for the last 100 years. That's certainly one of the things that's at the root of it. We're talking about a situation, which is ongoing, like Northern Ireland, things like that. Then there are also certain ideas about religious authority, about, when you take nationalist ideas, and especially religious ideas, and you translate them in the context of a conflict into a state and with a military tradition and etc. So you're going to get all kinds of ideas about authority and what has to be done and how it should be done, etc., etc. I can be a little bit more clear about this. I mean, there's a lot of talk in Israel, for example. There had been a lot of journalistic talk about these perpetrators acting under rabbinic orders, and that the rabbis are responsible. I think that for everything that we know about how Jewish religious extreme violence has functioned, that seems to be, for the most part, wrong. It's that the activists have their own sense of religious authority, which is very new and which is a throwback in certain ways to types of biblical authority. They claim to have charismatic authority. They've made even muted claims, but they've made claims to prophetic authority. So, of course, when you have a return to the land and a return to statehood and a return to Jewish political activism, you're going to get what people think of biblical models of authority and stuff like that, certainly. I think that one of the new things that we're seeing, so I'd like to add, first of all, that we're talking about a very small minority over here. And I'd like to add that what this does represent is it represents a strain of something which is relatively new, which is what I call Haredi activism. And Haredi activism, generally the Haredi community has been passive, has not, in its rejection of Zionism, it also rejected violent action, it also rejected military action, it also rejected political activism, right? Haredi men generally study Torah or pray or do whatever they do, but they don't engage in this. And what we're seeing now is, the fact that Haredim are alienated from the Israeli society generally did not have practical consequences because they've been passive. The fact that we have now people who are alienated, who don't accept laws, norms, or the morality of Israeli civic society, and who are now activists, has all kinds of consequences, mainly that they are unrestrained in their activism. In other words, until now, Haredim didn't accept the laws of the country, but they didn't do anything about it. At this point, if you're going to become active and you don't accept the laws of the country or you don't accept the norms, then you'll be relatively unrestrained and you might be prone to extreme actions of violence, which otherwise you would not have. Right? Those people who are engaged, for the most part, who have been engaged, including the religious Zionist community, who has been engaged in activism, for the overwhelming part, have been loyal to the state of Israel, loyal to its laws, and loyal to its that, and therefore we haven't had this. So what we're seeing now is a new combination of Haredi alienation from the state, together with political violent activism, which is something very new.
So do you think this is going to have a significant impact on the wider Haredi community?
It's an interesting question. I don't know. The Haredi community is now sort of fragmenting, and I don't know. I mean, it's certainly the Haredi community is not what it had been 20 years ago, and this could be presaging something that could be developing in the Haredi community because it's fragmenting. Its authority figures are not what they used to be. You know, when Rav Shach was alive and when other people are alive, and you can get more and more people involved in this sort of marginal borderland type of activity than you had previously. I would recall the horrible incident that occurred last summer with the death of Muhammad Abu Khder, which was also perpetrated apparently by Haredi activists. And so you see that it's the same type of limitless activism. So this could be something that's going to happen there. I don't know. Yeah.